we know that that's probably not thermite. That's probably something else happening. Ace Baker put together this series for me of Aman Zafar pictures. Notice how the clouds, roll out, and then this starts lathering up. You don't really notice it because you're busy looking at Tower 2's rollout of the cloud. But why is that coming out of appears to be coming out of every single window? And it comes out horizontally. You know it's not shooting up from the ground because this cloud at the top stays the same angle. It doesn't look like any pressure's lifting it up. But this top is the dark and this is light. Maybe it's two different ingredients.
2, 1.
Seattle Kingdom. Notice how high the dust cloud went. Not much higher than the top of the kingdom. And then it just kind of diminished. Also, beforehand, we saw all of those firecrackers going off. All over the place. We didn't see anything like that. Here. This is the other set from this free host, whatever that site is, GJS I call it. This is a beautiful picture of Tower 1 lathering up. Just pouring out this lather. This other thing I call smoke rings. Looks like somebody blowing smoke rings. Intermittent black things coming out. Here we have the light ingredient. We have the dark ingredient. Wonder what that means. And you see this series. Beautiful lathering up pictures. And then it quits lathering up. And then it starts blowing smoke rings. What is that black stuff that comes out? Fire doesn't do that. It doesn't, intermittently spurt out some squiggly things. Something else I started noticing, just before it goes, you see vertical, looks like fishing poles sticking up. And this is the series. We're looking at the last one's just before it goes, these three in here. This is the last one. And you might be able to see some vertical black thingies in there. Notice there's no more fire here. Earlier, when there was a fire, it didn't have smoke coming out of there. And here's the last one. Can you see those? Looks like little fishing poles sticking up. It's hard with this resolution. It didn't seem to come out real well. And then we know how it rolls on down the street. Rolls out. It stops right there, and then goes up. Look at that. Isn't that weird? It just stops. It's as though when the cloud maybe the dust is breaking down, it quits having its momentum because it's no longer big particles. It's now all turned to really fine particles that go up at just the same point in time. And here's that pedestrian walkway again. And how the dust stops right at that point. Now, there's something else that gets... This is one of those so-called squibs. Notice, they look like lather squirting out.
The second tower, just collapsing into a pile of rubble.
Here's the AP lead out of New York. Horrific sequence of destruction, terrorist crash.
After that, the second tower, just collapsing into a pile
Those
of rubble.
aren't explosions.
After that, the second tower, just collapsing into a pile of rubble.
I don't see a flash and a single explosion blasting out. I see like several windows of, it looks like this lather squirting out. And remember these in Building 7? They aren't explosive events. They don't look like the Kingdom did. We don't need to watch the Kingdom again. didn't see bright flashes. And with Building 7, we had this 47-story building. Look at the street down below. Can you believe that it's going to drop straight down without spilling out across the street? That's more like twice the world's record. And nothing's come down that straight. Look at the left-hand alley there. It's just to have it come down just in a nice, neat little pile, like Camelot. All leaves blow in neat little piles at night. And the post office building didn't get any damage. It had debris on the roof, a little bit of dust. Here's looking down that street. Here's after Building 7 went poof. It didn't even reach across the street, the rubble pile. Something I started noticing, look at the dirt. Look at the water squirting out of the Verizon building onto the rubble pile of Building 7. There's no fuming coming up where the water's hitting it. If it was steam, if it was from heat, you'd see something. Nice dirt. And look at the pile probably gets bigger with time. Again, looking at this lathering up and the smoke rings. That was Tower 1. This is Building 7 lathering up. When Building 7, we saw the video of it dropping. Didn't it look like it just got pushed off the edge of a cliff and just went down without any resistance whatsoever? I wonder if this lather tends to weaken the building so when a beam hits it, they can control what goes at what time. Let's think of a picture, a photograph. If you aren't familiar with photography, you say, how on earth, how much energy would it take to burn an image of somebody into that piece of paper? Unbelievable amount of energy, and that guy wouldn't be sitting still long enough to keep it in focus. But once you understand photographic emulsion, it just takes a teeny bit of light energy to cause the chemical reaction in the photographic film. Let's say we have the same event here, where the building is filled with some kind of gas, some kind of plasma, something, that the beam energizes when it hits it. So the beam does not have to be very powerful, but it controls where it goes when. And accidentally, maybe some of this lather got out in the middle of Liberty Street, and when the beam hit there, boom, you have a hole. Oops. And maybe the black part is like more hardener than resin. It's a different mixture. It's a catalyst for this stuff. You know, maybe there's some kind, like you have faster photographic film. Some's faster, some slower, because they couldn't lather up Tower 2 ahead of time. That would be too obvious. So they needed to have a stronger thing working. This one's pretty incriminating. We're told that Building 7 was damaged when Tower 1 fell on it. Tower 1's still standing. Why is Building 7 lathering up? Oops. This picture is taken from Reed Street. If you have a map, you can see that's just north of, I guess, Chambers. Now, this lathering, earlier in the day, we've seen this picture a lot. Look at this one. It's got more dark lather. If you want to make sure that thing is really well controlled, maybe you put more of the darker ingredient into it so it really just drops down to nothing. Well, that's pretty much, there's a few other things, but you've seen this lathering up, and I really think there's a whole lot to be had about that. What purpose does it serve? I've looked at some sites and seen like spray-on antenna material. So obviously you can have some things that are activated by other things. We know about photographic film. Perhaps there's a kind of a beam that triggers this material. What I wanted to show you is an interesting picture I've gotten from OSHA. From the OSHA site, they're taking out this big tank. Supposedly it carried Freon for cooling of the building. They have a lot of those tanks. But they had a really weird cover story for it. How many people here are familiar with how toxic Freon is? Is it very toxic?
You don't want to go breathe it in.
You don't want to breathe it nonstop.